As time wore on, Mr. Elias Grimshaw became a recluse, shutting himself away from the townsfolk who once admired him. His once thriving doll factory, now a crumbling relic of its former glory, echoed with strange noises at night, murmurs, footsteps, and the unmistakable sound of children's laughter. But no children had entered the factory for years. Elias's obsession had fully consumed him. The dolls that once graced the homes of the town's wealthiest citizens had taken on an eerie life of their own. People whispered that they saw the dolls move when no one was looking, their glassy eyes following them with an unnatural awareness. Some claimed to hear faint giggles coming from inside their homes, even when the dolls were locked away. Elias rarely left the factory, but when he did, he wandered the streets in the dead of night, mumbling to himself, carrying one of his children, cradled in his arms. His appearance had grown ragged, his once neat suit now worn and tattered, his eyes sunken and wild. The townspeople avoided him, afraid of what he had become. One night, the factory doors opened wide, revealing a strange glow from within. Curiosity gripped the townsfolk, and a small group ventured inside, their footsteps echoing through the abandoned halls. They found Elias in the heart of the factory, surrounded by his dolls, which now filled the room, lining the walls like silent sentinels. But something was different. The dolls were no longer mere creations. Their faces, once beautiful and perfect, had taken on expressions of twisted joy and sorrow. They sat in unnatural positions, some reaching out as if beckoning the onlookers closer. And at the center of the room stood Elias, his back to them, hunched over, a new creation. "Elias," one of the braver souls called out. Elias slowly turned, revealing the doll he had been working on. Its eyes gleamed with a strange light, almost as if it were alive. His face twisted into a manic grin. "They're not dolls," he whispered, his voice shaking with excitement. "They're my children. They speak to me. They love me." Before anyone could react, the dolls around the room began to twitch and shift. One by one, they rose from their places, their lifelike limbs moving with unnatural precision. The onlookers stumbled back in horror as the dolls advanced, their small feet tapping eerily on the factory floor. Elias let out a mad laugh, his eyes wide with glee. "Isn't it wonderful? They're alive." The terrified group turned and fled from the factory. But as they reached the doors, they heard a voice behind them, a soft, childlike whisper. "Come back. Don't leave us." They didn't stop running until they were far from the factory, but the memory of the dolls and the sound of their footsteps haunted them long after. From that night on, no one dared approach the factory again. It stood, rotting and decayed, a monument to the madness that had consumed Elias Grimshaw. But every now and then, on the quietest of nights, the townspeople swore they could still hear the soft patter of tiny feet echoing through the empty streets, and the faint sound of laughter carried on the wind. The dolls were still there, waiting,